What's up, fuckers? It's tea time. Today I want to talk about the sentient corpse of Texas, Dan Patrick. He must wake up with morning woodchuck. Now, Trumpublicans love to make fun of my teeth, and here I am making fun of Dan's. I know 2 wrongs don't make a right, but 75 million wrongs make a far right, and that's got to count for something. Dan has a face only a blind mother could love. He has bleak, lifeless eyes and thin locks of asbestos-colored hair. Drinking all that bleach last year certainly made his teeth as white as his supremacy, but even with all that bleach in his mouth, his breath still smells like the malodorous air in a century-old attic. I'm sorry for the jump scare photo. I'm not sure if that photo was taken before or after the embalming, but I think it'll serve us well. Unlike Daniel himself, he's currently serving as the Lieutenant Governor of Texas and a constant reminder of why abortion should be legal. Now, if there's one thing Dan has shown us since he was elected, it's that if you don't have a soul to sell, the devil also apparently takes payment in the form of lips. I don't see him. My patience with him is certainly wearing as thin as his lips. Now, Dan's over 70, so you know he's got some stories. You can find his book, Tales from the Crypt, at a bargain bin near you. When you're rotten to the core and as old as the Constitution, you definitely start looking like the Crypt Keeper. Now, decomposition could be the reason why his nose looks like it's made of silly putty, but that would explain why it's always stuck in everyone else's business. I know people love to say if you talk about someone's appearance, you don't really have anything to say, but do I agree with that? Of course not. I also have receipts to review. Dan's the longest living goblin shark on record, but his bad behavior is on record too. In 2013, the Texas legislature passed the Equal Pay Act with bipartisan support, but Daniel doesn't believe government needs to enforce a woman's right to equal pay for equal work. Not only did he vote nay on the equal pay bill, but he also vowed to obstruct any equal pay legislation in the future. To make sense of this, we'll have to go back to the Cretaceous period when Dan lost his first tooth. He never got any money left under his pillow. The tooth fairy couldn't lift one of those tusks. She's itty-bitty, among other things. Dan's definitely short for something. Now, who would have thought the tooth fairy was to blame for women's economic inequality? It's a shame, though, that Dwayne Johnson didn't get the role of the tooth fairy until 2010. Now, we don't have time to cover Daniel's full villain origin story, but we do have time for the aftermath. Dan was the man behind the transphobic bathroom bill in 2017. He opposes LGBTQ plus equality. He's anti-immigration, women's rights, accessible health care, voting rights, and anti-anybody that doesn't look like him, so pro-zombie and pro-racist. He recently blamed black people for the COVID surge in Texas, and we can't forget, he's the man who hijacked Greg Abbott and turned him into the wacky waste of space he is today. But unfortunately, with his bargain bin book sales and all the money he saves on bliss decks, he probably won't be short on cash for a successful re-election campaign. But regardless of his re-election, he's going to make sure that Republicans stay in power in Texas. He is the leader of the Senate, after all, and everything that passes through the Senate has a direct connection to old Danny Boy. Now, guess what recently passed through the Senate in Texas? The new proposed congressional district lines. Every 10 years, the U.S. gets one chance to count every resident in the country. 2020 was when we had our last census, and it was the 24th time that the country has counted its population. Although with pumpkin tits in charge of the pandemic at the time, the population count may be a smidge off. Speaking of thinning the herd, according to a scalp census on Dan Patrick, the population is definitely thinning. Anyway, every census is used to determine the number of seats each state has in the U.S. House of Representatives. It's also used to adjust or redraw electoral districts based on where populations have increased or decreased. In other words, this is where Republicans get their data for gerrymandering. Gerrymandering is why the Republicans hold every state office in Texas. I get asked, why do you Texans keep electing these evil people? We don't. They elect themselves. Gerrymandering is the process of drawing political district maps to give one party an advantage in gaining elected representation. Gerrymandering allows politicians to pick their voters instead of voters picking their politicians. It makes elections as rigged as a game at a carnival. Two main tactics are used in gerrymandering: cracking and packing. Cracking would be like diluting the blue voters across many districts so the red voters' votes are the only ones that count. Packing would be like concentrating the red voters into one district to reduce the voting power in other blue districts. The census showed that nearly all of the population gains in Texas were from people of color. But the proposed new district lines gives white voters control of both of the 2 new congressional districts the state earned. Sounds about white. The Senate-approved map also showed that 2 black Democratic members of Congress in the Houston area would be pitted against each other. The chamber amended the map to prevent the black members of Congress being pitted against each other and to just barely restore the Hispanic majority to a central Texas district that the Senate plan had shrunk. Dan Patrick, of course, rejected those changes and requested what's known as a conference committee to hash out the differences. So for those of you that think all Texans are ignorant, racist, gay-hating, misogynistic, Trump-supporting buffoons, think again. Gerrymandering and voter suppression are keeping us in the dark ages here in Texas. Don't hate Texans. Hate Dan Patrick. I want everybody to have a great fucking day unless you support our zombie lieutenant governor.